Hi everyone, today I'm going to give you all the information you need to know about the Moment 58mm telephoto lens versus the Sandmarc 58mm telephoto lens, so you can make an informed decision about what lens is going to be best for you with your money. I'll also be giving my personal opinion on what lens I think is the best at the end of the video. Now with each of these lenses you're going to need the branded phone case to use them. They've got their own special mounts. And with the Moment phone case, as you'd expect, it's a pretty stylish looking phone case with a nice grip on the back of it for handheld shots, that kind of thing. However, the plastic mount for the lens itself is actually a very cheap plastic. Whilst I haven't had any issues myself with this, I know some people have and have had to have new ones sent to them by Moment. Got nice outer buttons for functionality of the phone whilst you're filming, and a nice guarded bit at the bottom of the phone case so you can still charge and use microphones, that kind of thing as well. The mounting option for the Moment lens is a bayonet mount. Now this is one of my favourite ways of mounting a lens. It's very simple. You just line up the line on the lens to the case, turn it 90 degrees, and boom, you've got yourself a very nice and snug, effective way of connecting your lens to the case. Now when it comes to Sandmarc, the case isn't quite as stylish and it does feel cheaper, to be honest. However, the thing that matters most is the lens mount, and I have to say this metal lens mount in the case is really brilliant. It's very strong, very durable, and I just cannot see how this would break. And the buttons on the outside work nicely, and you've got a completely unguarded bit at the bottom. Now the lens mount option for the Sandmarc telephoto lens is a 17mm thread, so you just screw that on like a bottle lid, and whilst it is quite fiddly and sometimes it does annoy me that it takes a bit of time to get on the case, once it is actually on the case and screwed on tightly, it is not going anywhere. It's very snug. I actually think this is a safer connection than the Moment case to the lens. So very happy with the lens mount on this. You also get a filter clip that you can put your lens on as well with every lens that you buy, and you get a phone case with every lens you buy too with Sandmarc. For those of you who use gimbals, the Moment lens weighs 71.3 grams and the Sandmarc lens weighs a bit more at 84 grams, so you can add that with anything you might want to use for your gimbal setups. And you can see the size differences here. When it comes to image sharpness, the Moment lens was outstanding. Even at 300%, it still held the image really well, and there was still a decent amount of sharpness in the details, particularly if you look at the thorns. When you look at the Sandmarc lens, you can see that again it holds the detail really nicely, it's very sharp, but when you compare them side by side, that's when you start to notice a slight difference. And in the Moment lens, there was just a tiny bit more detail, but there really is very little to choose between them in this category. Now when it comes to the bokeh effect, the Moment lens is absolutely outstanding. You can see a nice amount of blur in the background, separating the foreground from the background, and in the Sandmarc lens it's very similar. Now the plants were being blown towards the lens, so it does look slightly more pronounced in the foreground than the Moment, but just because of that. And the blur is still really nice. When they go side by side, you can actually see though that the Moment lens has much more stronger bokeh effect in the background, so it wins on this one, I believe. In this image you can see again with the alpacas in the background, very good looking alpacas, aren't they? You can see with the Moment lens that it actually again has a stronger bokeh effect, and that's why you want to buy a telephoto lens in the first place, so that's a really strong aspect to think about. Now I discovered the reason as to why the Moment lens has a better bokeh effect. It's because it actually pushes in slightly closer to your subject than the Sandmarc. You can see here that the Sandmarc slightly pulls out, and as a result the bokeh effect is still really good, but it's just slightly less than the Moment lens. And you can see here in the background with the trees and the buildings in the background, it is slightly more distorted from the bokeh effect in the Moment lens. Now you'll be pleased to know that with both lenses the vignetting is basically at 0. They're very well made lenses, top level glass, top level builds, and you couldn't go wrong in terms of vignetting with either of these lenses. They're both high quality premium lenses. Now I wasn't actually going to look at flares on these lenses, but seeing as this happened accidentally, I thought I would. When I was looking at the skin tones, of which both are good with each lens, the Moment lens actually gives you a warmer, more natural and standard look for a film lens that you'd get with a regular camera. Kind of that orangey, slightly green glow. Whereas with the Sandmarc, as you can see, it's a lot more purple, way more purple in fact, and gives you a bit more of a sci-fi look. Now I prefer the more natural look of the Moment lens on this one, but some people might like that sci-fi look, and you can see when you see the lenses side by side with sunlight on them that there must be some kind of coating difference between these lenses that's giving such a drastic difference in look when it comes to lens flares. When it comes to chromatic aberrations, I have to say both these lenses hold up really well once again. Now when you look at the edges of the white part of this building, a slight distortion, but nothing more than you'd expect from a lens on a phone. And when you go to the Sandmarc, you get exactly the same thing near enough. So I have to say these are very, very much neck and neck when it comes to chromatic aberrations, in the sense that they have very little whatsoever. Now you may have noticed that there were some colour differences between the lenses. That's largely just because it was cloudy then sunny, then cloudy then sunny, so it was quite a lot of difference. But once I got some more steady conditions for the weather, it actually was very, very close between the two lenses. Sometimes one would look a bit warmer than the other, and vice versa. But in general, the Sandmarc came out a little bit warmer, as you can see, particularly in this shot here in my home. You can see on the right hand side, the Sandmarc just gives a slightly more yellow hint to the image, and you can correct either way in post obviously, but it's something to perhaps think about on the lenses there. Now when it comes to Sandmarc, I actually think they have the better filter system. With their lenses, you can actually just screw on the filters straight onto the lenses, or you can use a filter mount just to use the filters. Whereas when it comes to Moment, you don't have that option. You can't screw the filters onto the lens itself, so you have to buy separately from Moment an adapter to add your filters. So it has basically a rubber ring which goes around the lens, the plastic filter adapter, and then you add the filter itself. It is a very good system and it works really, really well. This is what I used in my last short film, but it's something to think about again. With Sandmarc filter system, meaning that you don't have to spend any money whatsoever, you just buy the filters and screw them straight on. Whereas with Moment, you will be looking at paying $39.99 just for the adapter. You can also buy their 67mm phone filter mount. That's only 4 filters, though you can't use that with lenses, so you'd have to buy the case. Now for Sandmarc, it's $39.99 US for the iPhone 12 phone case. When it comes to Moment, it's quite similar. If you're going for an old case for an iPhone 8 or something like that, you can get it for about $20, but it can go right up to $50, so it really depends. But there is a sale on at the moment, and I highly recommend you check out the links in the description below for both these lenses and the Moment cases in particular as well that are on sale. You can buy the Sandmarc lens with a case. They all come with a case for $129.99, which is a very good deal, especially when you look at the Moment prices. The Moment prices, you'd be paying $120 just for the lens, and that's in the sale price. Otherwise, it's $149.99. Now, it's very important to note that the Sandmarc and the Moment companies have come out and said that both these lenses work with iPhone models up to the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now, clearly these lenses are actually very similar in some ways. For example, the lens build is absolutely top-notch. The glass used on these lenses is top-notch. The clarity of the image in both lenses is really, really good. But there are a couple of things that stood out to me that is making my mind go to one lens rather than the other. So my favorite lens out of these two is the Moment 58mm telephoto lens. Now it comes down to 2 major things for me. The first one is the fact that the lens pushes in slightly more on your subject, creating more of that bokeh effect, separating the foreground from the background, which at the end of the day is the reason you get a telephoto lens. So getting that extra blur in there for me is quite a big deal, and that's why I would go for the Moment telephoto lens over the Sandmarc. The Sandmarc does have good bokeh effect, don't get me wrong, you're not being shortchanged if you get it, but the Moment just has that little edge on the bokeh. Also, whilst it is a more expensive option, I also like the lens flares on the Moment lenses a bit more. I think it's a bit of a warmer, more natural colour to what you'd expect to have in a film, whereas Sandmarc's a bit more of a sci-fi purpley effect. So that's my decision, Moment lens wins. If you want to learn more about Moment's lenses, then do check out my video on why I can't live without the Moment's anamorphic lens right here, right now. See you on the next one. Bye bye.